Welcome boys and girls, Costin here with a campaign as Alberic the Bordelot on Legendary difficulty, and I'm going to show you how to deal with this specific campaign. Because Lustria is not for the faint of heart, and if you do end up messing this place up, you will regret it very quickly. Now, as Alberic, you do start with a tier 3 minor settlement, and Bretonnia gets a significant level of growth from the minor settlements it controls, which is actually something that you can use to your advantage in order to really make good use of the initial starting province that you have in a lot of different ways. But first and foremost, when you're starting this campaign, one of the things you'll want to do is make sure you go for the vow. So Knight's Vow, pretty important. I even skipped it in the first vow. And then for Alberic himself, you want to get Questing Vow to win a siege battle in either the desert or jungle climate, because you will want that Questing Vow to be completed as quickly as possible. And then pledge to Chivalry for a Prophetess of Life. Now, you get a bunch of sea benefits, but quite crucially, you get a local recruitment duration of -1 turn for Bretonnian Knights, as well as recruit rank +2 for Bretonnian Knight units, which is pretty useful. And then you get Champion of Manon, so campaign movement range while at sea, Glorious Charge for Knights of the Realm, melee defense for men-at-arms, sea-based attacks as well. His special skill line is useful, but there's nothing really to talk about except Peasant's Duty, giving additional growth, control, and income. That is all very, very useful. So Alberic can have the single strongest economy of Bretonnia, and can end up dominating things quite effectively. In fact, in this case, because of the units I was able to recruit, I was actually quite able to skip past that particular siege battle. And then I was able to sack that settlement and get control over it. That's not something to ignore or mock. And also I got the Questing Vow completed right there. And we can get defeat the legendary lord of warriors of chaos, demons of chaos, vampire counts, or vampire coast. Not sure that's going to apply to Skulltaker, because that is he's going to be the next goal on this list. But yeah, you want to gain control over your initial province, and you do want to get Blade Master for melee attack as well as hard to hit. Buffing your units, your Bretonnian units, is not necessarily the single most important thing to do right here at the beginning of a campaign. In fact, quite the very opposite of all of that. It might be the lesser of important things to do in a campaign right here. Because Bretonnian infantry and range units, they're not going to benefit from that all that much. Bretonnian Knights, yes, you can improve their charge bonus, but is that really what is important here, or are some things, other things, more important than that? That really is what one needs to grapple with when playing a Bretonnian campaign. What units do you buff? How do you buff them? What do you use? Because, for instance, we can get another Paladin of Bretonnia, or we can start getting the Grail Chapel. We have enough units right here, but decisions ought to be made. In fact, I'm even going to skip past getting that particular building to tier 2, because what we're going to need right now is income and units. It is vital that you deal with Skulltaker as quickly as possible, and we have all the tools that we need early on in order to do so. Buffing the economy further or getting higher level buildings is not necessarily going to be what sets you on the path to success. Also, we do have Luther Harkon to contend with right there. So now we have this spell right here, and again, that can easily be dealt with, easily be controlled, And we can also move this prophetess right here to help things out. Though, unfortunately, we are going to lose one of the man-at-arms units, but that's okay, because we don't really care for those man-at-arms units in general. One of the things to be stated very clearly over here is you don't really want Bretonian infantry. What you do want are Bretonian knights. So we sack this settlement, we occupy it with our prophetess. Now, here's why we sack settlements when we're playing a Bretonian campaign. There's actually several reasons for it. And my movement range has been eliminated. We get some questing knights. We wait for the prophetess, we sort things out right here, we get the money that we need, and we get, you know, you look at peasant's duty, venerate the lady, etc. What we do want is to get not the growth, not the recruitment cost, but just, in this case, I would probably even go for the growth. One thing to mention here as to what your next step will be. You could go after Skulltaker, but if you go after Skulltaker, chances are Luthor Harkon comes after you. If you go after Luthor Harkon, chances are Skulltaker comes after you. So you have to make that decision. Which one do you actually want to go for? Because it is a decision. And that decision will dictate a lot of things that end up occurring in your campaign. For my part, I tend to take the view that it is almost always better to go after Luthor Harkon. It's not because you can't defeat Skulltaker, quite frankly, you can. But one, it's the harder fight. You at least need some way to deal with one of these actions. And free, dealing with Skulltaker is kind of not worth the time, effort, and energy. Because one, you don't have to, his province is not useful, it's annoying to navigate. There is a middle path. And that middle path involves everyone's favorite game in Lustria. Let's screw over the Lizardmen. We will get a rebellion here if we're not careful. So I'm going to switch to Venerate the Lady. And I'm also going to declare war on Grom the Paunch over there. And get a bit of money from Aquitaine. Just something that's needed. We're also going to get Aspiring Knights from Foot Squires. And now, with some of that sorted out, some money gained and all that stuff, and damsels also on the way, we are now in a position to do some damage on the Lizardmen, the minor Lizardmen faction. And we can choose who we're going to give that territory to. For whatever unknowable reason, Luthor Harkon does have a tendency of declaring war on you as the player here. It's kind of frustrating, I'm not gonna lie. If you're playing Gorak, he almost certainly declares war on you. If you're playing Alberic, he almost certainly declares war on you. So, regardless of what you choose and how you choose it and all that stuff, you're gonna end up in a war with this one bastard. And we're gonna have to deal with said war as well. We can make our life a bit easier by canceling the building right here and getting those two sweet damsels. One of life and one of beasts. And also, if we could afford it, getting some battle pilgrims. Battle pilgrims are one of the few units in a campaign, few Bretonian units in a campaign that are actually worth recruiting. But I'm not gonna lie, having to deal with Luthor Harkon is as fun as one might imagine it to be. in a situation. Not because he's hard. That's kind of the part that is laughable and when we're discussing it. He's quite the opposite of hard. He's a joke. But that joke is not to be underestimated unless you want to do it at your own expense. So yeah, right here we get rid of some of these men-at-arms with shields. And maybe even some of these peasants. Because our economy is on the limit and we just need money. You gotta love one thing about Lustria though. It is a damn bloody freaking mess. Sadly enough. So now he's gonna walk right into our trap. Chivalry takes a back row seat when we're dealing with the nonsense of Lustria. And so here he comes. And here he will die. We can always retreat, worth pointing this out. Retreat is a genuine option in this situation. I'm going to use control large army. That's one of the benefits of this specific approach. So how do you win a battle like this? Though, should be pointed out, the problem isn't in winning the battle. The problem is in winning the battle without losing half your army, because Skulltaker is just looking for an excuse to make your day that much more miserable. Well, controlling large armies does help in terms of staggering the enemy reinforcements, but that's not gonna be enough. We need to ensure that our guys are charging in directly and we're taking care of the business end of Luthor Harkon. We don't have time to wait. We go in, we go decisive, we show no mercy right here, and we shatter all of their ranged units in a single sweeping blow. And that's how you start getting success over here. Keep the cycle charging. The thing about Vampire Coast units, they're not an especially big problem unless you let them be one. And use the Battle Pilgrims right there. So Questing Knights have dealt with the mortars, critical binding right there once they start breaking apart. And they will. Now we use Alberic's capability right there to deal with some of the fellows and with Luthor Harkon. While our knights do a clean sweep of whatever remains of the, well, trash. I call it trash because it is trash in this sector. Don't forget the fell bats. Your goal is not necessarily to kill every single unit that you encounter. Your goal is to actually damage as many of them as you possibly can. With your knights especially. Because the more you damage out of them, the more enemy units will come in. And you kind of want to stagger that reinforcement. The more you stagger that reinforcement, the better off you will be. So in this case, we don't need to care about those units anymore. We got enemy lords to kill. But we, of course, need to deal with the fell bats because that is part of the problem, so to speak. But worth pointing out, we still can retreat. Like, the actual meaning of the battle here has been achieved the moment Luthor is dead. But I may not want to give them that option. Kill as many heroes and lords as you possibly can. That is how one achieves success in a battle of this kind of nature. Because the thing about Vampire Coast units, yeah, they're pretty weak and terrible. We got a mortar coming in. Mortar fire right there coming in. The more we kill the lords, the worse off they will be. It is a lot of micromanagement, to be sure. Oh, I guess those reinforcements have been exhausted. There we go. Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. Where's that mortar? Because I know it's there somewhere. I just can't see it. And there we go. 3-1. Of course, this is the part where I forget that I didn't do the vows on the damsels and I have to do them again. But that's not really too big of a problem. The vows matter more on lords than they do on heroes. Like on heroes, it's more of a nice side benefit. On lords is where it's at, really. And we get a quest battle right there. We could. She's level 6. We can get pledged to campaign. He's level 9. He's got that Grail vow being unlocked. We can get Champions of Bretonnia. We can get we can start getting some upgrades right here, and we get that quest battle as well. And at this point, really, the campaign is GG well played, honestly. though, keep in mind some of the aspects right here that ought to be considered, which is like you still need to recruit some units and you need to worry about your economic standing and all that jazz. But yeah, the main concern, as it were, has been resolved in this campaign. We just gotta pay attention to the economy so things don't go haywire. And pay attention to the movement range that we have. But yeah, pledge to chivalry. It's like all of these lovely pledges always constantly getting in the way and always requiring me to just constantly manage defects in a campaign with the Lord. See, Bretonnia has the ability of being fun and really powerful, but it can't be fun and powerful when this is the status quo of what you deal with during the normal course of a campaign, especially in Lustria. It's a shame, really. If Alberic started in a different campaign position, he'd be so much better. And that's not even a joke, like, genuinely so. Like, I'm not trying to exaggerate on this subject. You can clearly see that he's got what it takes to have a phenomenal campaign experience if things work out. Economy, sure. You know, it is what it is. There we go. Okay. That's about it. I think that's enough said for a moment. Costin here, signing out. Stay tuned for more. If you guys would want me to check out some other campaigns or just go over the ideas of how to handle them, hit me up in an email or leave a comment below. I'll see you next time.